Hello and welcome once again to ExanteDietExpert, also known as Keto A GoGo and formerly known as 1 year to save my life. It's been well over 2 years since I began this channel, so I assume from the original title, 1 year to save my life, that it's been a huge success, as I'm not dead yet, or not even slightly. There has been, however, a slight repositioning of my original ambition, which was to lose approximately half of my then body weight. This has proved to be somewhat optimistic, and as a consequence, it would be fair for you to assume that my program has been something of a failure. I would argue, though, that it's been a journey of discovery, and that having lost at one stage 20 kilos, not without its success. I have, however, been very eager to rest on my laurels, and amongst those laurels I rediscovered 6 kilos of the 20 I'd lost. Most of it was in a pizza box, I think. So here we are at approximately 90% of my previous weight of 158 kilos. I am currently 144, and I have a holiday booked in 7 months' time. And that holiday will involve me squishing my corpulent body into an economy class seat and hoping that it will withstand the 13 hours while I endure the journey to Singapore, the end destination being the Philippines, which is usually around 32 degrees and 90% humidity. And I'm going to be a hot, wet mess every time I move more than 3 feet away from the air conditioner. It would help, therefore, if that 90% was reduced to, say, 75% of the original, and so my target weight for New Year's Eve is 120 kilos. So, how in God's good name am I going to achieve that? To lose at least 24 kilos in 7 months. Stick around and I'll spill the beans. Now, it's not been all pizzas and ice cream since I fell off the wagon back in October. I have tried to clamber back on it a number of times, but I think I lacked a little belief in what I was trying to do, particularly with regards to the Exante diet. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the world of Exante, and I would encourage anyone that is able to restrict themselves to such a strict diet to go for it, because it really does work. I was successful in 3 months in dropping 3 stones or 20 kilo, going from 158.3 down to 138.3, I think. I was probably 90% faithful to the diet during that time. Now, I don't believe that there are many people that can stick to it 100%. It kind of gets in the way of having a normal life, whatever that is. I became a little disillusioned personally when I started looking into the science behind weight loss, particularly the effects of carbohydrates. Now, as you know, I'm type 2 diabetic. I achieved my diabetic status by pretty much eating crap and lying down a lot. It's self-inflicted. I used to be fit and active, but that was a long time ago, and it's getting to be almost half my life ago. So it's pretty much irrelevant nowadays, because nowadays I'm neither fit nor active. Diabetes is a bugger of a disease. It leads to all kinds of complications if left unchecked, something that I've referred to in previous videos. I've also referred to the NHS behaving like an ostrich with its head in the sand for ignoring the consequences of increasing insulin resistance. We could and we should be testing. It costs pennies to carry out a glucose tolerance test, and over time the records would show a person's increasing insulin resistance. Being able to intervene in a person's descent into poor health is surely what the NHS should have as its central reason for existence. Being able to present that patient with a record showing exactly how their body is beginning to struggle with the sugar load, and being able to present them with a viable alternative could change people's lives and could prolong people's lives. And it would save the NHS billions and billions of pounds in avoidable expense. that they spend treating illnesses, diseases and complications of insulin resistance. Heart disease, strokes, vascular dementia, blindness, amputation, nerve damage, some cancers, kidney and liver disease, to name but a few. That the NHS continues to give low adherence to prevention being better than cure is nothing short of a bloody scandal. And it's a scandal that robs families of time, of financial security, and of quality of life. The thing is, my diabetes was, as I've already said, self-inflicted. But I thought I just needed to get back to the gym and take away the takeaway from my daily diet. I wasn't aware that little by little I was developing a disease that threatened to shorten my life by a decade and put me in grave danger of developing severe health problems that affected my already shortened life. My diabetes was caused by a far greater reliance on carbohydrates in my diet than I should have, whether that be from grains or root vegetables. A chip butty counts as both, who knew? Or whether it be from processed foods with sky-high sugar levels. Have you ever started a packet of biscuits and dunk them in your cuppa while you watch something on TV, and then having to get up and make yourself another cuppa because there was only 4 biscuits left in the packet and it's hardly worth putting 4 biscuits back in the cupboard? Me, I do that. Actually, probably with every packet of biscuits I bought. Now I think about it, I'm pretty sure that even then I knew it wasn't doing me any good. But maybe like the NHS, it wasn't quite yet a full-blown emergency. Is that what the heck? Have another biscuit. If you ask a doctor, they'll tell you that type 2 diabetes cannot be reversed. It cannot be cured. You have it for the rest of your shortened life. I don't agree. And a growing number of physicians in the United States and Australia don't agree. I think those are the 2 countries that have higher obesity levels than Britain, so they should know. There's even a few voices of dissent within the NHS. At last. Diabetes can be reversed. The pancreas can recover. The liver can recover, and insulin resistance can be overcome. But it all relies on the tough walk. It all relies on maintaining a low carbohydrate intake back towards a sustainable, non-damaging level. It relies on getting most of your calories from the meat, fish and dairy food groups with additional leafy green vegetables. Now 5 a day, as they recommend, that's for healthy people who have no insulin resistance. The intake of fruit and vegetables high in sugars will cause a spike of insulin, which are necessary in order to prevent that sugar, which is by then is in the form of glucose, from reaching your bloodstream. This is the role of insulin. It gathers up all of this excess glucose and stores it away in your fat cells. And we keep eating, which keeps insulin flooding our systems. The trouble is, when insulin is present, those cells remain locked. Insulin has another role to play. In order to fulfill its role as the controller of glucose in the bloodstream, insulin is able to prevent the energy stored in fat cells from being accessed to feed the body. Now this is a disaster for the dieter for whom the penny is yet not dropped. Because exercising like Billy O and chugging down a sugary isotonic drink will spike that insulin and keep the fat cells locked. So all you do is burn up all the glucose in your liver and in the bloodstream, which causes cravings for sugar. The easiest source of glucose for the body to metabolize, which causes insulin spikes. So the solution is not to exercise. No, not quite. Firstly, what we need to do is get that guard dog insulin to sleep. And the only way to do that is to keep the carbohydrate intake to a minimum. Now, eating meat and fat doesn't cause insulin to spike. Well, not compared to carbohydrates, it doesn't. But here's a bonus. Meat and fat are much slower to digest than carbohydrates. So you feel fuller, more satisfied, less likely to nibble for longer. Now, if you can keep the calorie intake from these meat, fish, dairy and fat sources lower than what your body needs, you're going to have a calorie deficit. and your body will have to look for alternative sources of energy. And if you're like me, alternative sources of energy are abundant and obvious. And because the insulin is dozing in its kennel, the fat cells can be opened up and emptied of all that energy within. So why did I give up on Exante? In short, because in my opinion, many of their diet products are far too high in carbohydrates for a diabetic. I think anyone who doesn't yet have type 2 diabetes wanting to lose weight will do so using Exante, but much of that weight loss will be due to them restricting themselves to an 800 calorie a day diet. I think it's a very useful beginning. I think it's a vital stepping stone that will give the dieter a great feeling of success and a feeling that they have regained control in their relationship with food. And that's necessary in order to try a different, less restrictive kind of weight loss program. What I'm searching for is the holy grail of dieting. A sustainable, realistic choice of meals that satisfy hunger and provide all that the body needs. Now, ketogenic diets. What I've just described to you is a ketogenic diet, and it's the reason why the channel changed its name to Keto A GoGo. The ketogenic diet needs much more in the way of management compared to Exante, because it's far too easy to ingest quite a lot of calories, particularly when they're consumed as fats. Now, I tried it and I had very little in the way of success. I think the last 3 or 4 kilos that I lost were while I was dieting using a ketogenic diet, but it was far too easy to justify eating junk food or eating far too much. Now, it worked, but not in the way I hoped, or to the extent that I hoped. Now, much of what I've since learned with regard to how the body interacts with food, I've learned from watching the videos of Dr. Sten Ekberg, who is a great believer in something known as intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting is where I'm going to be concentrating my efforts over the coming months as my holiday draws ever closer. Now, let's talk about intermittent fasting. We're on a journey today. Now, as someone who has always had a poor relationship with food and a deteriorating relationship with food, I was initially both terrified and astounded at the prospect of going anything longer than a few hours without having a meal or a snack. Because that's what we're constantly having shoved down our throats, no pun intended. We are being brainwashed into believing that we are, as a species, incapable of going more than a couple of hours without feeding. That the instant we don't feel full to bursting, we should have a snack. That there's nothing wrong with a large portion. That a meal isn't complete without a couple of cheeky sides and a dessert. We're in a vicious cycle of all you can eat, buy one get one free, cheap, cheerful and easy meals delivered to your door. Even the walk to the car and the drive to the takeaway has become too much for us. And the roads are filled in the evening with little motorbikes whizzing around the streets bringing us our food before we pass out. It's about as far from the truth as could be imagined, and boy are we paying the price. Childhood obesity levels are skyrocketing, with almost half of Britain's children classed as obese. Over half of the adults already are, and every single one is on the road to type 2 diabetes. Every one of them will be showing signs of insulin resistance. We're in the perfect storm of food manufacturers pushing their cheap, addictive junk into our eager faces, and an NHS that is complicit in not intervening, not getting their message across, not carrying out mass testing, and not preventing the tsunami that will spell the end of free healthcare in this country. As a species, long ago, back when even Fred Flintstone was in black and white, we were hunter-gatherers. On an evolutionary scale, in the blink of an eye, we've gone from the Flintstones to the Jetsons, and now we jet off to holidays in Southeast Asia without raising an eyebrow. Oh, I did. On a metabolic scale, we remain hunter-gatherers and retain all of the resilience and hormonal responses of a hunter-gatherer. Hunter-gatherers found to their dismay that Deliveroo and Uber Eats were yet to start up. And as they had no fridges or freezers, they were forced to run around and chase creatures of varying sizes, kill them and drag them home, picking up a few leaves and berries and fruits along the way. A quick roast over the flames, and everyone ate as much as they could before it went off. Anyway, they finished off their feast with a little fruit, which contributed a good deal to fibre in their diet. Catching your dinner by chucking spears or firing off arrows or even trapping it can be a bit hit and miss, though. And of course, quite a lot of what they wanted to eat was hibernating in winter, nocturnal at other times, or in the case of fruit, strictly seasonal. And so they lived a life of feast and fast. I would hazard a guess that none of them suffered from type 2 diabetes. Now, I'm not suggesting that we all revert to running around the local park chucking spears at the peacocks. But instead, what I'm saying is that we are still naturally adapted to live without food for a while and yet still maintain our ability to function without fainting. We are still naturally able to undergo periods of scarcity of food. In fact, we're more adapted to this way of life than we are to our current way of life. Our life of abundance and excess and readily available calories and little motorbikes. Intermittent fasting aims to replicate that ability of ours, just minus the hunting and gathering, which can get a bit alarming for the neighbours and the peacocks. Now, the challenge. I am going to try to follow an intermittent fasting regime over the next 6 months. You can choose to join in or get your jollies monitoring how well I get on with this. Intermittent fasting gurus recommend a fast of 3 days, and I'm going to try and do this once a month. No food for 3 days. Good luck. The benefits are huge though. It isn't simply about weight loss, although that combined with the reversal of type 2 diabetes was and will be my main objective. Over the coming months, I'll be discussing the various other benefits, and there are a lot, of intermittent fasting, and sharing my own experiences of the ordeal of going without food for 72 hours. Promises to be a page turner, doesn't it? Anyway, clearly, spending 3 days eating nothing and 28 days eating everything within reach is not going to work, and so when I'm not fasting completely, I'll be following a 16-hour fast with strictly controlled meals in the periods where I am allowed to eat. So the idea of this might be referred to as intermittent fasting light. So what you do, or more to the point what I will be doing, is restricting the intake of food to a window of time between the hours of midday through to 8 p.m. After 8 p.m. until midday the following day, I'll be restricted to 0, apart from 0-calorie drinks. And my experiences of intermittent fasting light will be shared with you on a weekly video, detailing my food choices in the 8 hours of permitted eating, because I think that's important, not to just fill up on fish and chips, and how I aim to get through the other 16 hours with no food. And there will also be a record of my blood sugar readings as I try to rid myself of high blood sugar and diabetes, and of course an unfolding story of my rapid weight loss. Once a month I will be going hardcore and embarking on a 3-day fast and releasing a special daily video, again detailing my journey, my blood sugar figures, and hopefully my weight loss. Staggering around the neighbourhood for a half an hour twice a day will also become part of the regime on all of the days. Now, this is going to be tough. I would welcome your support and encouragement. So please leave a comment on the video as I post them. A couple of words will be fine. You don't need to write an essay, but let me know you're there, please. Now this is going to be difficult in the extreme, but if I can get on that plane and the pilot doesn't have to fight to stop the wing from scraping on the tarmac along the runway, I'll be a happy man, and so will he and all the other passengers. But if I don't need that article of shame, the lap extension belt, I will count this as a real victory. To keep yourself in the loop, click on the subscribe button. Is it down there, I think? Oh, is it down there? I don't know. Have a look. And the bell, and you'll be notified every time I post a new video. Wish me luck. Take care. Goodbye.